Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dgmg podcast. My name is Zoe Lulinski and today might be slightly different, and it's fully just for the simple fact that Taylor Swift just announced a new album and she was just on a podcast for the first time. And if no one knows, I'm the biggest Swiftie ever. I have listened to her music since I was 4, and mind you guys, I'm 20. It's been 16 years of me listening to her music, I feel like, and I am dying inside. I'm so excited for this album. This episode is really just going to entail my thoughts on the podcast episode, and then as we're getting closer to the NFL season, I'm going to be talking about fantasy football a little bit. These are two of my favorite things. If you know me in real life, if anyone knows me, all I talk about is Taylor Swift and the Chicago Bears. The first thing I want to talk about, and it's a hot take here heading into the NFL season, though, is that I think the Steelers are closer to being division winners in the AFC North than people think. I think Aaron Rodgers, though he's aging and in likely his last season in the league, he's still a top quarterback in the league, in my opinion. Obviously, on paper, there's other guys, I could name 10 guys that are technically top 10 in the league, but Aaron Rodgers is putting up the same numbers he did nearly a decade ago. If you go back and look at the numbers from 2015, he had 3,821 yards. And if you go back to, guess what, 2024, he had more yards than that, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. That's the one thing that you can say is the downside of in his entire career, is that he's throwing more interceptions than he used to be. And guess what? I'm a Bears fan. I hate to admit this, but he's still putting up pretty solid numbers. The only difference is that people kind of think he's a little crazy now and he's washed, which up to his standards he is, because before 2022, he was putting up 4,000-yard seasons every single year. And maybe my standards are just lower because I'm a Bears fan and I've never seen a 4,000-yard passer, but those are pretty solid numbers. And when you put him on a team like the Steelers, I mean, it's going to be hard for him to fail. This is one of the best defenses that he's had in his entire career. The Steelers defense is, I would say, arguably number 1 in the league this year. This is the best defense he's ever had. The Packers have never surrounded him with a good defense. He's won 1 Super Bowl ever, and I'm not saying they're going to be up to that level of winning a Super Bowl by any means. I mean, his only weapon is going to be DK Metcalf. But I just have to say that pairing him up with the defense that he has, that Steelers team is going to be better than people expect. It's just the truth. So that's my quick hot take there. But now I'm going to get into the podcast. This was amazing. I think Jason Kelce did an amazing job conducting what you could call it, an interview for 2 hours. But it's just awesome hearing Taylor Swift being able to talk like that for 2 hours, and watching her and Travis Kelce as a couple was like the cutest thing ever. They are amazing together. They're perfect together. I love them. But on the topic of Taylor Swift and numerology, if no one knows, as a Taylor Swift fan, she's all about Easter eggs. And so my main decision going into this podcast was just trying to hear the amount of numbers and take note of every single number she mentioned. She was very specific. At one point, she was talking about being a football analyst, which I'll listen to that every day of the week. But she said give her 16 months and she'll be an analyst. I feel like 16 months is a very random number. I have not had the time to actually go deep and look into what is 16 months from now, what is 16 anything from now. I haven't gone that deep into it yet. But she's also mentioned the number 47 2 times. And again, anyone who's listening to this might not be interested in anything, but I really just want to get my thoughts out. It was very entertaining to hear. Her album is coming out, though, October 3rd. I think that's the main thing I want to talk about. I'm super excited for this album because she's working with the same people that she worked on 1989 with. And guys, I am the biggest 1989 fan. It was the first concert I went to. I am a diehard 1989 album fan. That is my favorite album. Will always be my favorite album. Will always be my favorite Taylor Swift album. It has a special place in my heart. Just all the songs. They're so nostalgic to me. And she's working with the same people. I'm a huge pop fan as well. I'm a big mainstream fan in general. I mean, they mentioned it's going to have infectious melodies with the lyrics of Folklore and the beats of 1989. I don't think there could ever be an album that's better than that in existence. That's literally the best possible lyrics you could have and the best melodies you could have put into one. And then, mind you, with the Easter eggs, she has been wearing plaid to shows and red carpets for the past year, and that all along was just an Easter egg. She's releasing her album on October 3rd, which is like National Plaid Day. Like, I feel like you can't make this up even if you tried. The amount of thought that goes into her album releases is just insane, and it makes it even more fun to be a fan of her. I love Taylor Swift, but I'm going to get into the next topic. I don't want to take too much time talking about this because this is a sports podcast right now. As of now, this is what I usually talk about. So what I want to talk about now is my predictions for division winners. To start off right now, NFC North is going to be the hardest. That's the division with the Bears, Lions, Packers, and Vikings. They have three of the best teams in the league. All of them are arguably top 10, those top three. I would like to say the Bears are arguably top 15. I'm not going to go any higher than that just because they have a new head coach and, they had a top 10 pick last season. But I think it's the hardest to choose just because I think any of these teams really do have a possibility of being the number one team in the division. Divisional teams tend to play better against each other, so that's another reason why I say, they have 6 games. All of them are arguably hard games, but when you're playing against each other twice a year, you just tend to play a little different. So I do have the Lions winning the division. Yes, they lost their play callers on both sides of the ball, but they only lost 2 games last season, and even if there is a significant lapse in how they played from last season to this season, I think they'll get the hang of it in time. Even if they lose a couple more games than they're expected to, I think they're going to be the best team in the division. They have all the same weapons. They just lost a couple players. They still got Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. The amount of weapons they have on offense, any good offensive play caller should be able to use that well and should be able to do something with it. Jared Goff is a veteran quarterback. And then they have a decent defense as well, especially with Aiden Hutchinson and other players coming back. You just got to hope that they didn't have the luck that they have last year. They had a lot of their star players go out, so if they could stay a little bit healthier even this season, I think they should definitely be number one in that division again. And then NFC South, I have the Falcons. Michael Penix looked really good those last 2 games he played, and he completely turned around the energy of that team, in my opinion, at the end of the season. I need to talk to my friend who's a Falcons fan a little bit more to get his opinion on it, and maybe I'll have him on the podcast at some point. But, Bijan Robinson's expected to be the number 1 running back in the league, in the fantasy leagues this year, so don't get that twisted. Fantasy leagues and the real league are definitely 2 different things, but Bijan Robinson is going into... he's not a rookie anymore. He's not a second-year player anymore. He has experience now. If this offensive play caller can take advantage of Kyle Pitts, I think this is his last opportunity to do something. But this division isn't very tough. The Buccaneers won the division last year with 10 wins, and I think the Falcons can upgrade from what they had. I'm pretty sure they were 9-8 last year. Getting a couple more wins, I think they can easily be the winners of that division. And then moving on to the Eagles. In the NFC East, I think, again, the Eagles are definitely going to be the winners there. I think the Commanders might take a little bit of a step back with second-year quarterback. And then Cliff Kingsbury, he's always super good in that first-year play calling, and from his history and his experience, he's definitely gone back a couple times whenever he play called. But, again, it's a genius coaching staff and a very talented and athletic rookie quarterback. But I'm not going to minimize that by any means. He broke records. Jaden Daniels is... he's the best rookie quarterback of all time. Stats don't lie. But I do think that the team in general is slightly overrated when comparing to other teams in the league. And then the NFC West, I have the 49ers winning it. I said this last time. I think they're one of the most obvious last place to first place, worst to first in the league with competition with the Bears. But the 49ers do have an easier division, and they have experience. Every single player, almost every single starter on that team has had experience in the playoffs. They got a genius in Kyle Shanahan at head coach. And I don't like hearing Brock Purdy slander. He's the only Mr. Irrelevant, I think, of all time to actually become anything. He's played in a Super Bowl. But this is one of the older teams in the league, and I think just for the simple fact that they have all the experience that they have Nick Bosa coming back. They got Robert Saleh actually back on the coaching staff, which I think is going to be a big difference maker. I think it's underrated how much of an impact Robert Saleh has on that team and the players on the team. But they have top 5 players in many positions. Nick Bosa is arguably top 5 player at his position. Fred Warner is a top 5 player at his position. And then they got rid of Deebo Samuel and a couple weapons. But, I mean, they're not missing much with Deebo. He was not much of an impact, much of a difference maker last season as he's getting older. And Brandon Ayuk, he was injured all of last season. So while they missed these big playmakers last season, I think having another year without them, they found other guys that can kind of maybe take their place a little bit. They have one of the best defenses in the league, and don't sleep on Brock Purdy anymore. I don't know why people are. I think he's still going to be pretty solid. And then this is a hot take, not the winner, but in the AFC North, I think the Ravens are going to win. I think that's a no-brainer. However, I do think the Steelers are going to be winners over the Bengals. I think there's a lot of hype with the Bengals just because of the amount of money they've spent on that offense with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But that defense cannot be ignored. They didn't sign, or they haven't yet signed their best player on that defensive side of the ball, in Trey Hendrickson. And I can barely name a single, I can barely name a single player on that defensive side of the ball. That defensive side of the ball is the reason why they didn't make the playoffs last season. They have Joe Burrow, who's top 3 quarterback in the league, a top 2 wide receiver in the league, along with another number 1 wide receiver who happens to be the number 2 wide receiver on this team. And then you can't forget about Chase Brown. Chase Brown is a great running back for that team as well. The whole offense is a top 5 offense in the league. They're scoring 30 to 40 points numerous times every season, but the defense is also letting up 30 to 40 points every game. And you're not going to win games like that. And as a Bears fan, defense wins championships. You need a good defense to do anything and have any form of success. And then AFC South, I do have the Texans winning it. There's not much competition there. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars kind of slip in there with a new head coach in Liam Cohen and the weapons they have around Trevor Lawrence in that offense. Bills are the one lock I have this season in terms of who's going to win the division. The Dolphins, I think, are going to take a step back from their 8-9 season. And then the Jets and Patriots, they're just not going to be competition for the Bills. And then the West, I have the Chiefs again. That's, again, in my opinion, the intensity of divisions, it goes the NFC North, and then, in my opinion, AFC West and the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos. And you don't want to forget about the Raiders with the new head coach in Pete Carroll. They got a veteran quarterback in Geno Smith. You don't want to ignore that. And then AFC North is the 3rd best division in the league. So those are my top 3 divisions, and then my division winners as we're heading into the second week of the preseason. And then just to close out this podcast here, as we're getting into the regular season, talking about the regular season, I'm a big fantasy football fan. I'm 20 and I started fantasy football 10 years ago when I was 10. I won my first ever league I ever played in, and maybe just ignore this part, but I haven't won since. I've gotten close. I only lost 3 games last year and somehow choked in the playoffs, and I don't want to talk about it, so I'm not going to stay on that too long, but I'm in 3 to 4 different leagues this year, or what I'm expecting to be in. And a lot of my drafts are going to be towards late August and early September. I'm definitely cutting it close to the regular season. But I've also been interning at a company this summer that specializes in sports updates, NFL updates, fantasy football, and sports betting. And I've seen lots of drafts happen starting all the way back in June. I've seen drafts. I've participated in drafts, some serious, some not. A lot of the themes I'm seeing, which are, just to inform anyone who might not be as involved in fantasy football quite yet and is just getting involved in looking at who they might want to target. I'm not going to say specific spots that I think they should go in just because I don't want to give you too much info. But for anyone who's just starting their search for fantasy football this season, Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, and Saquon Barkley are, I feel like, the ultimate three this season, especially in PPR leagues. I know not everyone's in those PPR leagues where every catch you get is a point, but those are definitely the top three running backs. I think Saquon Barkley is going a bit lower this draft just because it's hard to see a player have the season he had 2 times in a row. But it's always obviously going to be a safe bet. That offense is insane. Jamar Chase, top wide receiver option in the draft. He's not really, I mean, he's splitting with T. Higgins, but he has proven that does not change how his production very much. Unlike CeeDee Lamb, who's going to be splitting with George Pickens, and then Justin Jefferson, who we're not sure how his chemistry is going to be with J.J. McCarthy, who is pretty much a rookie. But other than that, I don't think Brian Thomas or JSN are first-round talents, and I've been seeing them go in the first round continuously above guys like A.J. Brown, which is interesting to me. Maybe I'm stuck in my old ways and my old thoughts of past seasons, but I think A.J. Brown should definitely be going in the first round or second round over guys like Brian Thomas, JSN, and Ladd McConkey. Not saying they're bad options, but I mean, it's A.J. Brown, okay? I mean, they're having a different offensive coordinator this season, too. I know they're run-heavy last season, but A.J. Brown was still a very productive player. I also want to talk about 2 other running backs, maybe a couple steals, maybe a couple reaches. McCaffrey, I think, could very well be the steal of the draft. Even, I know he's going first round still in many instances, but if he doesn't get injured, he's on an offense that is run-heavy, directed towards him, and he's proven how good he is when he gets the ball. If he doesn't get injured like he has, I think he could very well be the best running back in fantasy leagues this year. And then, am I reaching in the fact that I might be a little concerned about Ashton Gianti? I mean, I know it's preseason and you shouldn't overreact to anything that happens in the offseason, but he had negative rushing yards and could barely get past the line of scrimmage in the drive or 2 that he played this preseason. I don't know how concerning that is, but you look at guys like Josh Jacobs, who went from having a crazy year to then having a down year because of the offensive line, and then changes teams to the Packers and is again a top 5 running back in the league. It's a little concerning. I'm concerned about that offensive line for the Raiders. I think if anything holds the Raiders or any of the players back, it's going to be the offensive line. So I think that's something to watch out for. And then in mock drafts that I've had and other drafts that I've seen, players like Travis Kelce and Brandon Ayuk are falling, and I'm surprised by that because, yes, Brandon Ayuk, we saw the year he had last year. He was out for a while, things like that, but I saw him go in the 11th or 13th round, and I just think that's an insane steal for a guy who was going in the first few rounds last season. And then Travis Kelce, for as long as he's playing, is going to be a top 10 in the league. He is a receiving tight end. Like, that's what he's meant for, and he's on a team with Patrick Mahomes. And he's got the Kelce magic on the Chiefs, you know? I think he's a guy you want to target no matter what. He might fall a little bit, obviously, but in the rounds he's going in and the guys he's going after, I think he could technically be considered a steal, even if there's other tight ends ahead of him that you want to target. But that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time.